Hello class, welcome to our another lecture. Today we are going to do a recap of what happens in 001 or research methodology, and we are going to begin with the basic definition of terms. The reason as to why I would like to define these terms for you is because these are key terms that we shall keep talking about every now and then in the lesson or in the process, and therefore we expect you to be conversant with them. The understanding of these terms will give us an easy time as we continue discussing on how to prepare a good research proposal. Now, the basic definition of terms, we begin with the term population. The term population is defined differently by different areas of specialization. For example, if we look at the historians, the geographers, people involved in various sectors in history, we'll say population is the number of people who live in a square kilometer or square meter. Now, for us in research, we are not interested in that kind of population. The number of people, the biologist will tell you organisms that are in a square meter for the biologist, and for the historians and geographers in a square kilometer. That is not the kind of population a researcher is interested in. A researcher is usually interested in people, organizations, objects that have common observable characteristics. We are interested in the characteristics per se. Now, let's look at it this way. If we are interested in looking at the motivation of teachers, then anyone else who is not a teacher is not part of our population. If we want to segment the teachers and say science teachers, teachers who teach science subjects and mathematics, then anyone who teaches English, Kiswahili, history, geography are not part of our population. So this is what I want us to understand when we talk about population as far as research is concerned. We are saying common observable characteristics. Let's look at it in another dimension, again from the education sector. If we talk about schools, national schools, we are interested in studying what the national schools do so that they make it, or they do so well. Then any other school that does not go by the name national school is not part of our population. So from that bit, we need to understand what a researcher looks for. Common observable characteristics. Now, when we talk of a population, we also need to look at it in another small perspective, but very key. Sometimes we want to study people, or we want to study a certain phenomenon, but the population is very large or scattered over a wide geographical area. What does that mean to us as researchers? It means we might not be able to get to all these schools or all these people that are scattered in wide geographical areas, or the population is so large. So that means we actually look for, or we talk about, accessible population, population that we can reach. Again, I hope we recall this from our research methodology. Now, it is from, if our population is scattered over a wide geographical area and we need to use the accessible population, it is from that population that we pick or we work out the sample that we need to have. And we look at the term sample that ushers us to the term sample, and we say sample is a small group obtained from the accessible population. See, the word accessible has come again. As we had said earlier, we might have a population that is too large and scattered over a wide geographical area, and therefore we need to work with the accessible population. And therefore, we need to be very careful when we talk about our sample, because this is the smaller group obtained from the accessible population. This group that we pick or is selected is what we use in the study and represents everyone else in that population. For us to obtain our sample, then we must engage the sampling procedures. And therefore, we need to understand when someone speaks of sampling, what do they mean? This is a process of selecting a number of individuals, organizations, objects, events to take part in the study. And these sampling methods, we know them. We remember them from our research methodology. There are two, as we said earlier. One, we talk about probability sampling, where each and every member of the target population has an equal and non-zero chance of being selected into the sample. And this method, the probability method, has its own variants. And these variants, we will be able to use them when we get to our chapter 3 of the research proposal. Now, the other one, number 2, is non-probability sampling, where the target members of the target population have an unknown chance of being selected into the sample. Another key term that is very important to any researcher is the term variable. Variable. This is a measurable characteristic that assumes different values among the participants. Now, when we talk of assumes different values among the participants, and we call it a variable, you recall somewhere we also talked about parameter. Parameter. And parameter also is defined as a measurable characteristic that assumes different values in the population. So when we talk about a variable is within a sample, recall, and then a parameter is within a population. Same definition, different scenarios. So we need to be able to understand what we mean at that point. And remember, we have various types of variables. Independent variables, dependent variables, intervening variables, confounding variables, and I hope people remember all those from our research methodology class. The other term that comes in that is very key for a researcher is objective. And this one, we call it any desired end or condition. What exactly do you expect to have at the end of the research study? And we say objectives in research studies refer to specific aspects of the phenomenon under study that the researcher desires to bring out at the end of the research study. Now, objectives, as we talked about them earlier in research methodology, you recall how we use specific terms to state them. We shall be stating them as we move on or as we develop our proposal. The other term that is very key to us is hypothesis. It is a proposition or explanation about a phenomenon that the researcher attempts to support or refute using observed data. Observed data, this is data that we collect, and therefore we shall either refute or reject or uphold or accept after we have collected data. Note again, a quick review. Research hypotheses, we talk of two major ones. The null hypothesis that says A and B are equal, and the alternative or research hypothesis that says A and B are not equal. So we need to be able to remember this. The null hypothesis, the one that says there is no difference, and the alternative hypothesis that says there is a difference. And the other term that we need to look at is problem statement. And this is a clear and concise description of the phenomenon that the researcher intends to investigate. Again, as we talked about in our last class, this is a key part of the research proposal, and that's why we need to define it at this point so that we can really internalize it, and when it comes to developing our proposal, it becomes a smooth ride. So we need to ask ourselves a few questions here. What is a research proposal? We've been talking about a research proposal, and we have been looking at terms of how to terms that come into play as far as a research proposal is concerned, and we ask ourselves, what is a research proposal? A research proposal is a plan that indicates the strategy the researcher intends to use in search of answers to the main research question, problem, you can also put it phenomenon, and specific research questions. It demonstrates how the researcher intends to go about answering those particular questions or getting answers to the phenomenon that intrigues the researcher. A research proposal is a document that is able to give an overview of the research project. It is able to tell the people that look at it, this is the scope, this is the methodology, these are the target population, this is the gap that we see, and this is how we intend to get our answers. It can also be looked at it can also be regarded as a plan or a suggestion, especially a formal or written one put forward for consideration or discussion by others. And therefore, when we talk about a research proposal, we need to understand this proposal document here. It is basically that we have this phenomenon that intrigues you as a researcher. And therefore, you want to get answers, and therefore you come up with this document, the research proposal, proposing this is how I intend to get answers to that, or to that intrigues you, to that phenomenon, to that research question, to that research problem that you want to get answers to. Now, when we talk about this research proposal, we ask ourselves, what is really the purpose of this proposal? Why do we need to write it? For what? And therefore, we tell ourselves, one, it helps the researcher to think out the research study that he or she is about to undertake and predict any difficulties that might arise. Now, I want us to look at it here. Predict any difficulties that might arise. Remember, when we looked at our course outline, somewhere we mentioned limitations of the study. Here we are. That is why we need to write a proposal so that we can be able to think. I always say a researcher needs to have a meeting with themselves, and that meeting should be able to tell you what we are talking about at this point. What are the challenges that I'm likely to get out there if I go to collect my data, for example? What are the challenges that I'm likely to get when I'm reviewing my literature? What are the challenges that or difficulties that I might come across as far as writing my proposal is concerned? So that is why, or doing my research is concerned, that is why we need to write a proposal so that we can be able to predict a few things as we move on. Number two, it compels the researcher to state all his or her ideas in written form so that they can be evaluated and improved on by the researchers and others. Sometimes we say you give your peers, when you write your proposal, give your peers, let them read through, let them tell you where they think you need to improve on. When you start doing your research work, you should not shy off from giving your other classmates or course-mates your work to look at. It's very key. They might have ideas, or they might have seen, or they might be able to see a few things that you did skip. We also need to write a research proposal because it is an effective starting point. It can be easily be submitted to other people who can look at it and improve on it. Besides your classmate, you give your supervisor to have a look at it and improve on it. So we need to be very careful when we prepare or when we talk about our documents here. We need to be able to engage other people. Research requires input from different areas. It can be used as a guide for conducting the research project, and that is the main thing that we look at here, and it helps the researcher to remain on track. It makes the researcher stay on course. If you're looking at motivation of teachers, then you stay within that line of motivation of teachers. If you're looking at the education curriculum, the transition from the 844 to the CBC, then it helps you stay focused in that direction. So it helps you stay on track. Otherwise, chances of digression, because there's a lot of literature out there, chances of digression are high. And therefore, we say, write a research proposal so that you can keep in one line of thought. And then when we write this proposal, a research proposal, we ask ourselves, how do I know that I have a good quality research proposal? So when we look at a research proposal that is effective, then we talk about innovation. There is no way we will talk of a good, effective research proposal without talking about innovation, creativity, originality. As a researcher, we always say, let your ideas flow. And when your ideas flow, then we know that you're being very careful with yourselves. Therefore, it is your work, it is originally yours, and therefore it is innovation. This helps the researcher to remain very motivated and to avoid plagiarism. And that's why I'm saying the work is yours. Therefore, the researcher needs to be careful not to plagiarize or have people's work and claim it is yours. Therefore, it is important to let your ideas flow. Use innovation. It states clearly what is being proposed or what the study is all about. A good research proposal should have that clear of thought, that clear flow of thought. What exactly are we investigating? What exactly are we studying here? And therefore, it should be able to clearly tell us what the study is all about. When a reader reads that document, whoever is reading that document should be able to see what exactly the researcher had in mind. A good one also should have specific objectives that are SMART, objectives that are achievable. Sometimes people state objectives that you look at an objective and you realize this objective is not achievable under these circumstances. And therefore, it is important that the objectives that are found in your proposal are achievable. And then it should be able to indicate the significance of the proposal and show how this could benefit various people. Remember, we also mentioned this somewhere when we looked at our course outline. We said significance of the study. And the significance of the study, therefore, tells us who will benefit from our study, and therefore, or the findings of our study. And therefore, significance should also come out clearly in a good proposal. The proposal should also be able to describe the approach that is in use. Are we qualitative, are we quantitative, or are we mixed methods? And therefore, they should be able to tell us here what method is in use. Remember, it is the approach that we pick that determines the design that we pick. And therefore, it is important for us to be clear in the document. Let us not have a design that is qualitative and yet the approach that is put forward is quantitative. So we need to be very careful at that point, and that's what a good proposal should be able to bring that clearly. It also should be able to give the time frame. You know, we say no research study can take place endlessly. And that's why somewhere in the document there must be a work plan. So it should be able to tell us that and give us reliable results. And of course, it spells out the estimated budget. And of course, this is what we expect any researcher to be able to do. Now, before we write or before we embark on writing a research proposal, we usually write what we refer to as a concept paper. Now, a concept paper is a 2 to 3 page document, depending on the level, that summarizes the entire project from the beginning to the end. Now, the concept paper is what tells everyone that your ideas are flowing in a certain direction. And therefore, it is important to come up with a concept paper. This document should be able to give us or to take all the ideas in the mind of the researcher and you put them down. And then this can be improved on as to a proposal. Now, writing a concept paper is usually a very good exercise because it helps the researcher keep in check how they want their ideas to flow. It also is in a way to help in that logical progression of the proposal, because already your document or your ideas are on paper, and therefore people can be able to critique and help you improve on them. So a good concept paper, as we talk about it, should have or has the main components. And the main components of any concept paper is the mission statement. What does the mission statement do? It explains what the researcher is trying to do in about 50 words or less. So that means we need you to tell us exactly what you want to do. What is your mission? What is exactly do you want to do? And therefore this is what happens in a concept paper, the mission statement. It also gives us the statement of need. This is what explains the need the researcher is trying to address. And remember we said a social need. What is the social gap that you're trying to address at this point? And of course, finally, we have the project narrative that explains what the proposed activities are going to be. And these activities are all the activities we shall be looking at or we shall be encountering in the proposal. The structure of the concept paper, that now we are talking about writing this concept paper, what does it have? It has the title page, okay? And of course, this same title page, we will find it in our proposal, the final document, as well as the report. The cover page, which also we shall find in our proposal, we shall also find it in our report. Declaration page, the abstract, and the table of content. That is the preliminary page section. The introduction, that is the section number 2, is the one that gives the background of the problem. Remember we talked about the history. Where did this problem begin? How has it progressed? And where are we at this particular point in time? And therefore, this is what gives us that information. And therefore, this section 2, that is the introduction, gives us the background of the problem. It gives us the statement of the problem. What is this that we need to address? We've mentioned that before. It gives us the research questions or objectives, and it gives us the significance of the study, the limitations of the study, theoretical framework, and conceptual framework. That is the second section of the conceptual of the concept paper. Now, the third section of the concept paper gives us the reviewed literature. Remember, we say a good researchable topic must have enough literature to address it. And therefore, this section gives us that feel, that idea, that you know where your literature is. When we talk about theories, we understand to show the knowledge gap in the theories, that one, a researcher should be able to do that. And they should be able to review empirical studies. These empirical studies, these are studies that have been done by other researchers like yourself. And therefore, you need to have that. And of course, we need to be able to identify the key issues that need to be addressed. And the fourth stage is the research design and methodology. And this section should be highly summarized, because the concept paper is not a long document. It's not a huge document. It's a document that has 10 to 15 pages, plus and including the references. Therefore, this is highly summarized. You write briefly in prose with no subheadings. We do not want you to tell us research design, location of the study, target population, sample and sampling procedures. You do not involve that. You summarize it without those subheadings. And therefore, you simply give us what should be happening in the research methodology, and you leave out the ethical considerations. And then finally, we expect the reference page. And this one, as we mentioned earlier, reference pages, we have the APA 6th edition that we use. And therefore, we need to know what edition is in use. We always use APA and the 6th edition to make our references. And those are the sections of our concept paper. Now, if we have our concept paper ready, and we are talking of areas of our concept paper, remember we have said this is a document that has 10 to 15 pages, plus and including the references. We need to keep that in mind. Plus and including the references. And therefore, it has those sections: the introduction section, the literature review, the research design and methodology, and the references as we have mentioned at that point. So those are sections of a concept paper. Remember, the concept paper has 3 main sections. We want to talk about what? 1, the mission, the statement, and the narrative. So with that, we tell ourselves, once we are able to do that, our concept paper is done or is through. And therefore, we will be able to come up with a document that can later be developed into a proposal.
We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.